Hello, I'm Greg Jamian and thank you for watching Boomer Health at Home, the show where we explore the most relevant healthcare topics impacting the baby boomer generation today. As more and more baby boomers seek answers to many times difficult healthcare questions, our goal is to provide ideas, tips, and cutting-edge solutions that will help improve your everyday life and health. It is our hope that you find the following information helpful as you sit back and watch Boomer Health at Home.
Hello, I'm Ryan Donlan alongside Brett Pulte, and you're watching Boomer Health at Home. Thank you for tuning in. Brett, what kind of show do we have planned for today?
Well, today, with Super Bowl Sunday coming up, and everyone's going to be bringing potlucks and of nachos and hot dogs and everything delicious. We're going to be talking about food preparation and how to keep food safe while you're at home or out or going to a friend's home. We have Laura Leblanc coming in. She's a registered dietitian, very smart. She knows some of the best tips on how to keep things safe.
Great. Well, so make sure you don't get sidelined during the big game. Stay tuned for some advice, and we'll be right back at you. Welcome back to the show. As we mentioned in the intro a little bit ago, today we are going to attempt to end some of those age-old household debates, whether you should chuck it or finish it tonight, with foodborne illnesses as a main topic. Is this safe to eat? Should we cook this? Should we throw it out? I know at home it's a big debate we have with my wife and I. I have a father-in-law that insists that leftovers are good up to 3 weeks as long as you heat them up longer. Is this smart? So to answer these questions and more, we have brought on one of our favorite guests, of course, registered dietitian Laura Leblanc.
Well, thank you, Ryan. How do you beat that introduction?
Well, we appreciate you coming out here. Could you tell the folks at home a little bit more about your background?
Sure. I've been a registered dietitian for over 28 years, mainly working in long-term care rehab setting, and then venturing out into home health. And I have my own practice called Mindfull Nutrition. And I see patients either in an office or privately. So definitely when you talk about foodborne illness, going into homes and seeing what some of my patients, how they're storing their food, what they're eating, and all that, that's something that I would definitely look at.
And that's that's definitely something, like Ryan said, leftovers are, let's cook a ton on one day and see what we can do for the rest of the week, kind of deal.
What's the big deal with the food prep? Like a lot of people are saying, let's plan out a meal for 10 days straight. But then I always wonder, I don't want to eat chicken for 10 days straight, whatever it is. But can you? It's kind of nerve-wracking sometimes. So I guess before we dive into some of these, let's just get some of the basics about foodborne illnesses out of the way. First off, are there more people, for instance, who are more susceptible to a foodborne illness than others?
Yeah, definitely. When we're talking very young children whose immune systems aren't fully functioning, elderly patients that may be on medications, or just have had chronic disease that's affected their immune system, and anyone that has an autoimmune disease or is receiving some sort of chemotherapy, and those are mainly the most high-risk people that we see today.
No, you said that like older people could be because of medication and things like that, but just pure age, how can that impact the immune system?
Well, the body tends to, it doesn't repair itself as it used to. And especially in your GI tract, you may have delayed gastric emptying. And again, you may be on medications that are affecting your immune system like a steroid, and that can affect it. And there is some speculation on all of these over-the-counter or prescribed antacids that are being used, because our stomach acid is one of the frontline defenses in fighting off foodborne illness.
Interesting. So if someone has GERD, acid reflux, they may be more at risk
They
to get
could.
it.
There's still, I don't know if there's enough evidence. I think it's more important, to talk to your, the risk benefits and talking to your physician. And hopefully after we talk about some preventative measures, we won't have to worry about, because we want to prevent the exposure in the first place, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. So first debate. Let's debunk something. Every once in a while, someone in a household says, "Oh, they don't feel well. Must be something I ate," but then they're fine by the end of the day. What is the typical duration of a foodborne illness? Is there really a time frame for it?
I wish there was, because then we'd know every time that it was a foodborne illness.
Right.
Unfortunately, usually with some of the more common ones that we talk about, like the norovirus, or E. coli, you will start to feel symptoms almost immediately, and you can usually trace back to what you ate. But there are other bacteria that if you eat them, you will not see symptoms for 7 to 10 days.
Wow.
So it really varies. And I think you mentioned we're going to have a list of the various viruses and bacteria that can affect you, and the duration and the symptoms.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
that would be really helpful too.
Yeah.
And like Ryan said, it's something people always battle, especially in the winter months. Is it food poisoning or is it influenza virus? So how can someone tell the difference between them?
Usually a good rule of thumb is a flu can pretty much last for several days, if not weeks. Typically a foodborne illness is going to be started and over within 12 to 24 hours. And you may not have any of the long-term effects like the fatigue and the malaise and all of that, where it's pretty much focused on the GI tract specifically.
Very good. All right, folks at home, grab your pens. We're going to dive into this. I just need to know,
Glasses.
how long do leftovers really last?
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I have a stepfather that insists that meatloaf can last a week too.
Yeah.
So
right?
as long as you heat it up, right?
Yeah, some people are 2 days throw out, 3 days throw out. It's all, everyone's got their own formula.
Exactly. So, it does vary, and there are food charts, and we're going to get a website that you can go for each specific food group. But mainly anything perishable, and what I mean an open package of something like lunch meat or meat that you've cooked, if it's stored properly, I wouldn't go more than 2 to 3 days after it's been, the package has been opened or the food has been prepared. Maybe the lunch meat a little bit longer, but we'll get into that later.
So after 3 days, your risk starts to go up pretty
Right,
high.
and
Okay.
like hard-boiled eggs, you can keep for about 3 to 5 days. Tuna salads that you've made, I wouldn't keep it past 3 days. Especially those are things that you're not heating up again. So that is definitely something to consider. My rule is 2 days, but that's me personally.
Yeah, that's good. That's it at least gives people a guideline.
And if it got to the back of the refrigerator, just throw it away.
yeah,
Okay.
if you don't know.
You
Yeah,
don't know.
Yeah, that's funny. Everyone has that in the household where it's like all these leftovers in the fridge.
Yeah.
Just like either have leftover night or we throw it out. So
Right.
it's, that's
Yeah, and one way, in a lot of the institutional kitchens, what we do is we would write the date that it was actually prepared, and then when we put it in as a leftover. So that will give you, when did I eat this last? You'll have
Yeah.
the date on there, and then you can even put throw out by. And that's something I suggest to caregivers that are looking in on their, older parents, to make sure that, they have some sort of system set up like that, because it's hard to remember.
Yeah, we use it in our house. It actually started almost like to claim your leftovers. Was we take some painter's tape or masking tape, write your name on it, but then we'd say, well, why don't we write the date on it too? Because like, how old is that Thai food?
Right, right.
And sometimes they give you the takeout. They'll write the date on it for you, the date they serve it, which is nice. Some places,
nice.
but you can't count on that. You should. That's good advice.
I don't know if you have leftovers with takeout, do you?
It depends.
Okay.
I order a lot of food, as you can see.
So now, like you said, and Ryan just mentioned too, dating stuff, and especially if you get takeout. But when you're at home, what are some good tips for safe food preparation?
Okay. Well, one thing is it always boils down to hand washing, because we carry bacteria on our hands and we touch things. So wash your hands. One of the things you want to do if you are making a dish that has raw meat, you always want a separate cutting board. And you want to make sure, I always do my vegetables first and put them far away from the meat, and then I'll work on cutting up the meat. Do 2 separate cutting boards, and then you want to make sure the meat cutting board is either in the dishwasher or you can wash it with some bleach water. I prefer the dishwasher. Another thing is that you want to make sure anything that is frozen, you're defrosting properly. So many people will put it out on the counter to thaw. What happens is that the outer portion is going to start thawing, it's going to get warmer, and the inside is still frozen. So that part that's already defrosted is now susceptible to the bacteria growth. So that's something you always want to make sure it's on a plate and not above anything in the refrigerator. So you wouldn't have your lettuce underneath your thawing meat, because the meat juice could drip on it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So when you do cook the food, I like, especially with like steaks and stuff, people like different temperatures. How do you know when the food is cooked safely?
Well, another rule of thumb is that the meat juices, they want to be clear. You don't want to see any pink in color. Some people do eat certain dishes very rare. We usually go by internal temperature. In most meats, it's going to be between 145 to 165. And that's important to check that, because something can look cooked all the way through and it not all. I mean, have you ever taken a piece of chicken off and let's stick that back on the grill?
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we use food thermometers, to definitely make sure. Another thing is, you want to make sure that you're not seeing any sort of I forgot what I was going to say.
You're talking about the meat juices. You're talking about.
No, but that's pretty much it. I think that okay.
Yeah, that's good. No, it's funny you say it, because every time I grill chicken, it's fun. It comes out as half pieces. I cut them all up, and they come out overdone anyway. So I should just.
I know. It's like there's such that delicate balance.
He's actually the cook out of our group here, so
I cook fairly well.
Yeah, it's
true.
Okay.
So on the lines of cooking and grilling and safe food prep, with these expiration dates, are they rules or kind of guidelines?
Oh yeah.
Well, there's a couple of different dates that we look at packaged foods. A lot of times it will say sell by. Now, sell by means that the store has to sell that product before that date.
Okay.
And they cannot sell it once it's gone past that date. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the food is expired or that it's bad. It's just it's a regulation that the store has to sell it by that date.
So that's their store policy, just
It's
to
a
move the
store
product.
policy, and it's also, past the sell-by date, you can also, the product is probably going to start to deteriorate as well. Okay, and then you have the use by. Now that's a recommendation by the manufacturer, not the store. So that is something, it's kind of a dicey term in that it's not really telling you when it's going to expire. It's just telling you it's going to be best if you use by this date.
Okay. So that's kind of like when you get a bag of chips or pretzels, something like that, and it says guaranteed fresh by.
Right, something like, yeah, exactly. And then the expiration date, and we'll usually see this on more high-risk foods such as you know, like a milk or some other sort of a salad. You know, when you go to the deli and things, it will say expiration date, and those are certain things that you want to make sure that you do not use after that. A lot of canned foods too will say expiration date, and you know, when in doubt, throw it out, definitely.
Yeah.
It's great advice.
Right.
And you know, we've been talking everything at home, so now let's look more at going out to eat. You know, what advice would you give someone when they're dining out?
When you're dining out, you know, just doing I always do kind of a quick and dirty look around to see if it's dirty.
Yeah.
You wanna make sure that the wait staff, that just the obvious signs of cleanliness are there at the restaurant. If you have any sort of food allergies, you would want to ask if their food if everything was cooked on the same grill. Sometimes people have mushroom allergies or egg allergies, or things or seafood, and if it's deep fried with the chicken, it's gonna be cross-contaminated. You can also ask to look at their sanitation report. Every food establishment is seen by the health inspector, so you can go online most likely and get those results too. If there's been any food outbreak from that restaurant, you could tell as well.
Perfect. Now, how about like in terms of, you know, you go to summertime barbecues, holidays, big one, where you're making food at home and transporting it to like a potluck type setting.
Right.
How can you make sure you're not going to bump off your whole family by, you know, bringing a dish? Food safety during transport.
During transport, okay, so if you have something that's warm, you want to make sure that you have it wrapped up, and then sometimes you can find insulation bags that will actually keep it warm. The rule of thumb though is to reheat it, and you want to get to about 145 degrees. If you have something cool, then definitely keep it in a cooler while you're transporting it with plenty of ice, and then refrigerate it before it's set out. The main rule of thumb is about 2 hours after it's been taken out of the refrigerator or that it's been cooked. On really, really warm days, if it's, you know, very hot out and humid, I say about an hour. And you know, I'm very careful about a lot of things that are high risk, like the salads, like the meats, the potato salad, things like that.
Right.
And be careful about the little vermin and varmints, you know, flying all over the place.
Oh yeah.
They make little mesh things you can put on your food that will keep flies from landing on it.
Okay.
They're like little tents for your food.
It's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen one of those.
I'll find one and get you one.
So, I mean, like you said, you know, making sure that everything's taken care of in a proper, timely manner or consumed. And you see that all the time, especially, you know, Super Bowl Sunday, 4th of July, parties like that, where people just bring stuff, set it out on the counter.
Right.
You know, you're running off to a party, you know, 25, 30 people are there, and you just kind of forget about it, or you walk by, graze a little bit, keep going on your day.
Right.
So it's one of those things where people don't really think about it.
Exactly. And another thing too is serving utensils. You know, you want to make sure that people aren't, you know, tasting something, putting the spoon back in. That's another way of cross-contamination. So again, just be mindful when you come to an event like that. Notice, you know, what's on the table, and then if it's 2 hours later and it's still on the table, you know, maybe suggest that some replacements get put on.
Right, yeah.
You know. But another thing too, I wanted to mention as far as takeout, if you carry home a doggy bag, and if it's the middle of the summer, if you're not going right home, don't keep it in the car. Usually no more than an hour and a half to 2 hours if it's not real hot. That's the safety, and that's if you're going to reheat it.
Okay. And I was thinking too, you said restaurants, are there anything, you know, we see the restaurant, like, this is on special. Is there any, like, maybe guideline or rule to avoid food poisoning within a restaurant, or?
If you're going to a buffet setting, or if you're going to something that, you know, Yeah, I'm just thinking that you need to watch for things that have been sitting out for a long time. Sometimes temperatures can't be kept to the standards on a steam table where just warm water is heating it.
Yeah.
You know, just in general, look at the signs, look at the cleanliness, and look at the history of that place you're going.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I always avoid, when this, salad bar comes with a meal. I just don't do it.
Show up first for the salad bar, right?
Yeah, it'd be the first one.
And just watch. I mean, especially too, because people, they think they're at home and they may,
Right.
It just sometimes you have to be real careful.
I always look at the sneeze guard too. Like, how dirty is that? They're not cleaning that. They got the little glass.
They don't call it a sneeze guard for
yeah, I know, right? They got to regulate that. 'Cause that glass, there's no way that's stopping a whole sneeze.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're in control of what you're putting on your plate. Behind the
True.
doors, you don't know.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So now we've been talking all these preventative tips, and what happens if you suspect that you do have a foodborne illness?
Well, you immediately want to contact your physician, because if this is an ongoing process, you risk dehydration, and that can be very serious. If it is ongoing, I really, don't take anything over the counter, because that can keep the organism in your body longer. So always check with your doctor before you would consider treating it yourself. You want to get rid of the bacteria or the virus. That's why your body reacts to it so violently.
Very
That's
good.
Interesting.
These are some great tips, especially, I know around here we got Super Bowl coming up, so all these people traveling food, hopefully they're tuning into this. They don't ruin the party.
Yeah.
It's very good. We are actually running out of time. I would love to sit here and talk more, but we want to thank you for coming on and giving us some great information.
It was great. Thank you. Thanks,
Of course.
And of course, anyone at home, if you have any questions about any of the content you saw in this or really any other show, please call us at 248-288-2270, or you can shoot us an email at boomerhealth@americaremedical.com. Thank you for watching.